Welcome to a new video on the NEGAYO channel. The second part of this animated trilogy about the Crisis on Infinite Earths has already premiered. If you're here, it's likely because you disliked the movie, couldn't understand it, or hadn't seen the previous films, leaving you confused. Why is it happening this way? I think it must be something like that, because I honestly don't believe you're here just for me. I usually save my opinions for the end of the videos, but just in case you were wondering, well, no. I didn't like this movie, except for one particular scene. You can probably guess which one. Sadly, this second part of the Crisis feels quite unnecessary. Like Warworld, it's clear they stretched out the story excessively, resulting in a dull adaptation. That is, I believe that time could have been better spent on some explanations about Kamandi's journey, or explore Flash's alleged death or other fascinating universes. But no, this story focuses on the Monitor's development of empathy for living beings over millions of years. Honestly, I don't believe they did a good job. But let's move on to the summary, and please share your thoughts at the end, alright? This movie is divided into multiple settings, time periods, and follows three main characters. We will try to go in chronological order, and we will start with Charles Halstead. We had already seen this fool as the main villain in the Justice Society movie. World War II, and almost at the beginning of this story we explore a lot of his past. It's the time of World War II on Earth too. And Charles Halstead is having a conversation with Kent Nelson in a room of the German forces. And yes, it's the same fortress that appears in the Justice Society movie. In fact, this conversation happens before the events of that story. Due to Kent Nelson's silence, Charles begins to talk about his past. How, ever since he was a child, he liked pirates. Gradually, he realized his mind was unique compared to others. When his parents fought, he could feel their emotions, all their hatred, that made him suffer. Sometime later, he was sent to a boarding school where he was bullied a lot. Even his teachers couldn't care less about his well-being. After enduring persistent mistreatment and abuse, he started to control his powers. One by one, he forced his classmates to perform unforgivable acts. He manipulated others' emotions to humiliate them. And this kept escalating until the boarding school was under his complete control. When the parents stopped receiving reports about this place, the police went to the site to try to find out what was happening. All the teachers had apparently committed suicide, and the remaining boys were just puppets of Charles. Upon becoming an adult, he managed to manipulate the German forces and earn a place as a cruise captain. He dedicated himself to deceiving, looting, and destroying enemies while enjoying the use of his powers. One day he encountered a storm that destroyed his ship. He got rid of his companions and managed to survive a little longer. Nearly dying, he extended his mind a final time and casually found the guards who brought him to Atlantis. That's how he used his powers to manipulate Aquaman, and although he resisted at first, in the end it was all in vain. He used these forces to ally with the troops of the Lord with the funny mustache. And now? Charles had come to this fortress because he had been called by Kent, who supposedly had a gift for him. This doctor didn't say anything at all, and Charles's powers didn't work on him. Nelson suddenly regains his sanity after a period of normalcy. He mentions that he was in another world, and when the pirate tries to manipulate him, it's no use. Nelson talks to himself out loud about very strange things that still don't make sense to this fool. It suggests he can wake up in other realities, meaning he can exist across the multiverse. While here on Earth too, he just seems to be drooling. Charles begins to be scared of this madman who shows he is capable of invoking magic. Kent Nelson imprisons his guest, transforms into Dr. Fate, and mentions that he will gift him this ability to travel through the multiverse, because Charles will play an important role in the upcoming crisis. After the glow, everything seems to return to normal. Charles leaves here scared, and then the events of Justice Society happen, where Kent Nelson was already talking about the end of reality. He read Hawkman and Flash's cards for free, then vanished, declaring the crisis had begun. I suppose he was referring to another reality where the Antimatter was already attacking, because at least on Earth 2, the first wave of Antimatter didn't arrive until several decades later. Jay Garrick, Black Canary, Orman, and Superman's advanced ages serve as evidence, as depicted in this trilogy's first part. After the Earth 2 Superman's appearance, the German plane's fall, and Steve Trevor's death, Charles seemed to have nowhere to go. In those years, we didn't know how he had managed to escape from Flash, but now we have the answer. With Dr. Fate's gift, he could transport himself to another reality. In one scenario, he was president and had ruined the world. It could be any country in Latin America. Wait. On closer inspection, it appears that Charles is the president of Peru. Congratulations, friends from Peru. Now you are canon in the Tomorrowverse, but at what cost? This is where the devil appears to Charles and takes him to the Monitor's ship.
The neighboring universe has been erased. Soon all realities will end and you will have nothing to rule.
Giving way then to the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Part 1. Wait, hold on a little, because here we have to take a pause and we have to go back to the past of Earth. In the Tomorrowverse, it was never clearly explained where Kara Zor-El had been after Krypton exploded. According to the movie, his ship crashed with the Monitor's ship, who was observing the planet's destruction. Of course, without interfering. Because this dirty ship was blocking his view of such a beautiful space genocide, the Monitor kept complaining. So to stop it from bothering, the satellite decided to save it. Kara didn't remember what had happened to her home, and for a while she was taken care of by the satellite. At least until this machine suggested to the Monitor to start approaching Kara, so that the girl would be encouraged to eat and not die of hunger. Little by little they began to talk more and more. Monitor spoke of his commitment to monitor air, and over time he appeared to have developed a fondness for Kara. Because once they talked about Krypton, he didn't dare to mention that the planet had been destroyed. Instead, he just said that for now he couldn't take her back home because he needed her on the ship. And that when they finished their work, then maybe he would help her return. One day when the Monitor was careless, Kara found a familiar-looking ship. She started recalling her planet, switched on the computer, watched a summary of Negayo's movie, subscribed and turned on notifications. But unfortunately, she also discovered that Krypton had disappeared. This enraged her and she confronted the Monitor for having deceived her. Moreover, she was enraged at the man for not doing anything to rescue the Kryptonians. He had just stood there, Monitor, guiding and watching people die. Kara couldn't stop crying knowing she was the last of her race. And then the Monitor tells her that's where she was wrong. Since her cousin Kal-El was also still alive and very happy on Earth, he was even now known as Superman. Because the Monitor's ship was outside of time and space. Kara didn't grow up alongside Clark, that is, she stayed young, while Kal-El became an adult.
I'm sick of waiting, watching, and doing nothing.
Finally, she left this place, and I say even the Monitor cried because without her, I was alone again. The Legion of Superheroes events occur subsequently, and we discovered that the Monitor was already monitoring the antimatter waves, while his satellite never stopped watching Kara on her adventures. In one scene, they included a video of the negative reaction because they disliked the movie. Theories about Brainiac, Mon-El, and others were also shown. Sometimes they post videos about crisis theories and Constantine, but they don't pay much attention. However, that's a different topic. The point here is that the Monitor was impressed that Kara could defeat Brainiac and his miraculous machine. Soon after Supergirl joined the Legion of Superheroes, Batman and Superman disappeared, taken to Warworld. Who knows how many months passed that the League didn't even care about this and were more busy with Barry and Iris West's wedding. It appears that this Martian Manhunter was actually the original one. You see, I told you before that it could be from another Earth and all that. He was kidnapped too, but apparently no one cared, not even the movie writers, as they didn't show a single scene of the Martian's abduction. The heroes likely noticed the giant hole in Metropolis, but if they believed the two had already been disintegrated, there wasn't much they could do. Moreover, the League disliked Batman. Since they had paid for the party hall, they didn't want to waste it. The superheroes ignored Superman and Batman's disappearance, despite the fine vegetables. Kara returned to the 21st century to investigate. And since she is very smart, the first place she started looking for answers was at the Kent's farm. She may not be a great detective, but at least she took action. What did he say? Okay, did the League do something too? Awaiting, Kara just landed on the farm, and then the devil appears to her. This machine took her to the Monitor's ship where her adoptive father reveals that he knows where Superman and Batman are. He discusses the Negayo's videos with her and shares his foolish theories about a supposed antimatter threatening reality. And then he convinces her to undergo the process of becoming Harbinger to help him carry out a plan in case the crisis is real. That's how Kara starts recruiting heroes from all realities, and also this fool and Batman, Superman, Earth 2's Wonder Woman, but not Martian Manhunter. No, not him, because it seems like no one cares, not even the writers. Then the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1 happen, where, oh surprise, Martian Manhunter's death still doesn't matter to anyone, not even these three who were saved thanks to his sacrifice. Earth 3 is destroyed, the heroes create the towers, Flash disappears, the 31st century is erased from existence, and now, the task of this entire multiversal team of champions is to protect these structures from being consumed by the antimatter that, undeterred, has continued to attack different universes without any success. There was Batman on Earth 2 chasing Jim Gordon, who was poisoned by Joker used as a distraction. Who knows how many guards here didn't see him or a damn tank approaching the area. But well, if they start to act as they should, we run out of movie. Joker, Killer Croc, and Solomon Grundy. They wanted to destroy the tower just because, but luckily, the multiversal Bat family comes to the rescue to help the Bat. Robin, Little Robin, Batgirl Huntress, and Batman Beyond succeed in stopping these psychopaths. I wonder if Batman has died on this Earth, why is Joker still active as a villain? That's the question anyway, about this Batman, who is the one from Earth 1. We had already realized he doesn't enjoy teamwork and likes the idea of adopting children even less. To let them fight in the most dangerous city in the world, more dangerous than Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, imagine how crazy that Batman from Earth 2 was. This Robin keeps comparing him to the Batman who trained him, and Huntress keeps calling him Dad. Bruce dislikes the notion that in an alternate reality, he fathered a somewhat psychopathic son with someone named Talia. He dislikes the notion that in a different universe, he passed the Batmantle to Terry. McDonald's has a catchy jingle that plays whenever their mascot appears. Well, this doesn't exactly happen in the movie, but that's how I imagined it, so they had Batman really stressed out. He remained sad, assuming Flash had died since he didn't know what happened to him. Despite not being his Earth, this Batman still wanted to protect it alone, without help. He's not as crazy as some of his other versions, but still somewhat stubborn. Meanwhile, the multiversal champions continued to monitor the antimatter waves in other universes. Every time these things approached, they agreed to activate the towers to prevent reality from being consumed. The problem was that these waves couldn't be predicted, and it seemed like they were attacking more frequently. So much so that sometimes these structures would overheat and they had to be scrambling to fix them as quickly as possible. Supergirl still couldn't get over the fact that the 31st century had disappeared and it seemed like no one understood or emotionally supported her. Not even Superman, nor saving the world from the Atomic Knights, made Kara feel good. In fact, having returned with the Monitor only made her awaken that anger for not having helped Krypton. Superman defends the actions of the bald man, which is the worst part.
Downstar dissolved in my arms. I lost my whole world, and now I have another home. What's gone? No worse. They never existed. Now they will never exist.
Don't say that, my love, please. The heroes were dispatched to guard towers in various lands. Kamandi was sent back to his native post-disaster Earth universe, which he had previously left in the Detective Comics showcase, before later appearing in the German fortress through unknown means. Dr. Fate caused it, but we need more details. Anyway, he doesn't want to be here because in this world he is completely alone, surrounded by evil humanoid animals.
I am alone, the last boy on Earth.
To make matters worse, they pair him with King Solovar, and from experience, Kamandi thinks he is evil. However, he soon discovers that this Earth 1 gorilla is good and kind. You may be wondering what's going on with Charles Halstead and why they wanted him. It appears the Monitor is using him to transmit positive emotions to the champions, keeping them sane amidst the stress and destruction. Unfortunately, Charles, who has been evil all his life, is not very good at handling positive emotions. Because of this, he asked the Monitor for a bit of his power to carry out this job more easily. And guess what? Stupidly, the bald guy. What could go wrong trusting a meta-human villain who even befriended the man with the funny mustache? The Monitor says nothing but shares some of his power with him. It's worth noting that the Monitor had a motive for this action. And that is, he learned from Kara and her adventures that sometimes continuing to believe and fight against all odds does serve a purpose. After so many attacks, these brilliant and questionable scientists have come to the conclusion that the antimatter waves are being sent by something or someone. Though it's difficult to imagine a living being capable of wielding such power, for them it's hard to believe.
Just because an answer is ridiculous doesn't mean it's not correct.
These attacks keep coming in all universes.
Ah yes, and another crucial point. Do you remember that in the Detective Comics showcase of Blue Beetle, he faced a villain named Dr. Spectrum? In the short film, the villain vanished mysteriously at the end. Charles Halstead, who could travel between universes, was this character, and only Ted could identify him.
Oh, hello, I know exactly who you are.
What happened to the question? And here I thought you were a better detective than Batman. Did you let me down? Inquisitive. Charles admits that identity was his. Having gone through so many realities, he had also had many names. He was even once known as Roy G. Beevolo, traditionally called in the canon as Rainbow Rider. For now, what matters is that Charles uses his amplified power to manipulate Blue Beetle, ensuring he doesn't betray him. In the midst of this, Charles suddenly vanished, leaving him engulfed in darkness. A light surrounds him as a deep voice questions his motives for helping the heroes. What about the Monitor? This unknown thing didn't have a name, but it was clear that it hated this guy. So, because of that, he decides to name himself the Antimonitor.
Yes, there is an Antimonitor. Too many people.
The Antimonitor starts persuading Charles to cease aiding the champions, and it's that if in the end all the universes were destroyed and only one ended up remaining, Charles would have enough power not only to rule them all, but also to become their god. Meanwhile, on Earth 19, Hawkman realizes that a new wave of antimatter is about to attack. Can you notice that this time that wave is more intense than the previous ones? Immediately on Earth, one day realize the same thing is happening, and soon more universes begin to report the same situations. Batman is the only one who can notice that this attack was not antimatter, but rather it was a way to bring shadow demons to the different Earths, to attack the champions. Finally some action. Holy Pupico.
Replaced. But look, me. I've taken the strange evil.
Saint Pupito, I'll match it. I'll do it again.
Is it Christmas in the Sea Hill?
You have to save me, brothers! This is crap! For God's sake, I'm scared!
Let there be light.
Let's go out first.
Let's see. Tell them you work alone like at the beginning of the movie. Let's see, damn Batman. Only when it suits you, dude. Thanks to Superman, they discover that these demons can't resist against light attacks. Another interesting fact is that these beings seem to be part of a single consciousness. It's incredible. Wonder Woman decides to go to Earth 46, where the world is ruled by Amazons. And even though they are not her original sisters, nor is this Hippolyta her real mother, she still doesn't want to let them die. How many superheroes does it take to defeat the demons? On post-disaster Earth, Kamandi and Solobar stopped the entire army alone. Although they were so broken that the script had to nerf this duo, and they killed the king. Don't worry, King, we won't cry for you. They only gave you 3 lines of dialogue anyway.
Hold on. Alive.
Boy.
When on Earth, 46 also stopped the demons, Diana tells the Queen that they must use electricity to attack the enemies. However, Hippolyta lets her know that when they took over the world and imprisoned men, they also got rid of all technology, since none of this went with their customs. As Supergirl was heading to the transporter to go help Earth, she accidentally bumps into Charles, whom she ends up naming Psycho Pirate because of his costume. All strange, Psycho Pirate begins to manipulate Kara to seek revenge. He then heads to the satellite window, where he uses his powers to throw negative emotions onto the heroes, who gradually start to fight amongst themselves. Kara arrives on Earth, but it's clear that she wasn't focused. As a result, she ends up being absorbed by one of these creatures that shows her her worst thoughts. Supergirl plunges into a dream where her mother is alive, as well as Brainiac 5 and Dawnstar. They let her know that they are truly dead, just like all of Krypton. Even, Psycho Pirate's voice leads Kara to believe that the only one responsible for all these misfortunes is the Monitor. It even makes her think that he could have been responsible for destroying the planet. Kara became convinced that the Monitor was evil and that he really just wanted to destroy existence. And being pushed by Charles and the voice of the Antimonitor, she now believes she must kill this guy. Psycho Pirate's plan was working until the Bat family started fighting, but well, they fight every day. Anyway, the Amazons were being overwhelmed and Hippolyta refused to release the men to help in the battle. On Earth 1, they were also fighting among themselves, and it's not until they get a blow to the head that they return to normal. Jon Stewart, already free from manipulation, is called by a strange vagabond. A subject whose life he had saved a long time ago and about whom I made a series that almost no one believed me at the time. You said the worlds were ending, did you know? Are you part of this? You're welcome for spoiling this big moment. What the hell? Found by the Monitor, it was already too late. The heroes kept fighting each other, and therefore, they didn't see a new wave of antimatter coming. Psycho Pirate disappeared before being arrested. Earth 46 was eliminated because they failed to activate the tower in time. The Atomic Knights were also erased, just like hundreds and hundreds of other universes. As the Monitor watched this calamity, the Spectre appeared to him again, saying that punishment for this being would come soon. For he had spent millions of years just watching cataclysms in the universe, doing nothing to help. The Wanderer did manage to save Earth 1 while fighting against Jon Stewart. That's it, that's my name. Have I tried to think about it for 100 years? Maybe he was able to regain his memory and he returned to his old appearance. Together and by accident, they managed to defeat the demons and are one of the few lands that managed to survive, just like Earth 2. Thanks to Batman, the demons left this reality and reorganized on Earth 1. They were becoming more and more and began to merge until they took their true form. The attacks against this creature were useless. The Monitor lamented not having realized earlier that this being existed. The Spectre appeared one last time, announcing that the end was near, and behind him was Supergirl, furious and calling this guy a murderer. This time the Monitor didn't protect himself from Kara's attack because at the last moment he considered his death as something necessary. He was hit by Supergirl's heat vision. And when the Kryptonian realized what she had done, she had no choice but to mourn this loss. The Antimonitor continued to resist the champion's attacks. Worse still, he began to create an armor that allowed him to withstand even more against his enemies. The remaining heroes knew that there was nothing they could do and just stood there, witnessing their imminent end. That's how the movie ends. In case you're unaware, this is what's coming for the upcoming closure of the Tomorrowverse. I remind you that I made a video about that a while ago when the voice cast was leaked. In the description, I leave you the link so you can see the complete information. And all the characters that are back and will also appear for the first time in this movie saga. Anyway friends, remember to leave me your powerful like to help me in the eternal battle against the YouTube algorithm. Don't leave without subscribing, turning on notifications, and leaving your opinion on this second part of the crisis. I hope you liked this summary and explanation that I honestly thought wasn't gonna be such a long video, but well, what can I say? I know not everyone watches all the movies and I don't like to leave anyone in doubt. If you're not fully familiar with the chronology, analysis, and theories of this universe, I recommend that you check out my channel as we have followed everything that has come out about the Tomorrowverse since it began to the letter. In fact, we were already talking about the crisis since the Justice Society movie came out. You helped me a lot by sharing this summary if you liked it, and in the meantime I have nothing else to say. Thanks for visiting friends, I'm Alex from the Negayo channel, see you later.